All right, y'all. It's the Nonsense and Deep Thoughts Podcast.
Wait. Come on. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Give it up for your hosts, Corey and Justin, with producer in the back who does all the work. Give it up for Jared.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nonsense and Deep Thoughts Podcast. Justin, what is going on? God, we're a couple of bums.
Dude, I know. Bro, I chuckle every time we start up now.
I know.
So
I love it.
Just like, damn, that's cool.
I look at the pictures that Jared picked out for those, and I'm like, my God, Justin and I, both in our backwards hats, we're almost to our 40s, and we're just bums. We're just bums, man.
It happens. Don't say that word yet, though. Don't 40s, not
40?
Yet. Not yet. Not yet.
The dirty word?
No, not yet.
Yeah. So, guys, we have a very special guest with us tonight, and when we try to think of guests, we love having people on the show. We love getting to talk to all sorts of different people. This one, I've been thinking about this one for quite a while. Justin and I have talked about this for quite a while. We want to welcome Kevin Edwards to the show. So, guys, say hello to Kevin.
Hi, everybody.
So, guys, Kevin Edwards is a local sports writer. He works for the Tri-County Independent. Used to be the Wayne Independent when we were growing up. And this guy covered so many of our local youth sports when we were young, when we were just little tykes, learning to play baseball and football and all that nonsense. So we've known Kevin for a long time. He's known us, kind of known us. You know, I think we were
basically
probably
our
his
whole lives.
He was we were probably his favorite group of guys going through the ages here, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Got to toot our own horn, you know.
So now my first question right off the rip.
I knew it was coming.
We're talking no. We're talking
okay.
about almost being 40. How the hell does that make you feel?
Oh my! You have no idea. This comes into my head a lot. I see kids. I still call them kids, and I shouldn't. That I was writing about when they were in Missy softball and Little League, and now they're in college and they're married and they're parents, and I see them and I can't believe it. I've been doing this now for almost 30 years, but in some ways it seems like just a blink of an eye.
And so you probably started then right around when we came into Little League.
Uh-huh.
My first year was 1997, and that was with the River Reporter. It's a little family-owned newspaper in Narrowsburg, New York, which is right across the border. And then the Weekly Almanac, which is defunct now, but that was also a family-owned weekly newspaper here in Honesdale. And I was the only sports editor they ever had. And then the Independent came and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So 27 years now at the Independent.
So, okay, 27 years. So without me doing math in my head, so that is right about the time of the article that I thought you were going to bring up. So now I'm questioning if that was even. Yeah, I wish I could have found.
I'm 100% positive it was Kevin. 100% positive.
The first time Justin and I ever appeared in the newspaper together, we were featured in the photograph. It was me attempting to field a throw from the catcher, trying to tag him out, stealing second base, and my face is turned. He's sliding in with his leg up, trying to take me out, and underneath it read that Corey Bishop was trying to tag out Justin Staples.
Justin Staples?
I don't think that was me then.
It was one of my favorite news articles ever. I had that one in my scrapbook from the time I was really little.
I have no clue where it is.
I just cannot find my scrapbook anywhere. I lose things, man. I'm not good at holding on to them. Joseph C is already in chat, ready and waiting. Joseph, thank you so much for being a part of our show every single week. We love that you're here all the time. Thank you for that. So where do we want to start at now, Justin? Do you have anything in particular that you want to start?
What got you into sports writing? Like when you got into it, was that just the job that happened, or that's what you wanted to do?
Well, it's really interesting because I have no college experience or anything like that with journalism or sports writing. Believe it or not, my degree is in philosophy of all things. I
would believe that.
I got into. I've always been a writer, and I was working at a job. I was newly married, just starting, getting ready to have a family, and I hated my job, and I always wanted to write, and that opportunity came along, so it began there. So I pretty much just taught myself as I went. I'm all self-taught.
That's pretty amazing. I had no idea. Like, I always thought that in order to get a job writing for a paper, they would kind of, require that you went to school for it or you had some sort of experience with it. So how did that come about? You said it was the River Reporter first, right?
Yeah, it was. It's life, as you guys know, in a small town is different than life in a city.
Of course.
Here, a lot of things, it's word of mouth and who you know, who your parents know. The gentleman at the time, he and his wife owned the River Reporter, and I had written something many years prior when Keith Sutton, who was he is the legend. He was the Wayne Independent sports writer / editor for 52 years. He was one of my idols when I was growing up. He was the nicest man you'd ever want to meet. He passed away. I wrote a little tribute to him and just sent it in as a letter to the editor, and they put it on the front page for some reason, which it was nice. I mean, I was thrilled. But
yeah.
That the gentleman at the time who owned the River Reporter had just stuck with him, and he remembered it and gave me a call and said, "You want to try doing some sports?" And I said, "Sure." And that's where it all began.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Taking the direction of sports, you have a big background in sports, right? You're like us. You played sports from the time you were a tiny tot, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Baseball and football were my two biggies. I played baseball from Little League right up through college. I played at Lock Haven University, played shortstop for them. But football was my love. Unfortunately, as you guys know me personally, I'm not the biggest guy in the world, so I wasn't built for football, but it was my love. So I played in high school, and then I played 7 years of semi-pro for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Eagles, and I was a slot receiver. Steve Largent was my idol, so I kind of patterned myself after him.
Yeah.
And so what were the years you played for the Eagles?
Late 80s, early 90s. And
because I know
I was going kind of strong, but 6 concussions later, here I am, guys.
Oh
my goodness.
Because I remember when I was playing Stingers, we would go out to a lot of the games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we won 2 national championships when I was playing back to back.
Yeah, they were some of my most fun memories, like of going to watch football.
Eagles games when were a lot of fun.
They were so much fun. I remember they used to do like a punt, pass, and kick. I was in that every year.
Right.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, we're still like a big family, guys. We have reunions a couple times a year. And
do you really?
Yeah, we have. There's a core group of us, about 30 or 40 of us, that are still very close.
That's awesome. Corey, I'm shocked your dad never played.
My dad? Yeah.
Yeah. He was a monster.
Yeah. My dad had other things going on, trying to get into the police force and whatnot.
True.
Don's a good man.
I appreciate that. I learned from the best.
Played for the Eagles.
Yeah, I was a slot receiver for 7 seasons.
So, man, it's a shame that team isn't a thing anymore. They changed to the Electric City Chargers after quite a while.
Right.
And then that died down awful quick, didn't it?
Yeah, semi-pro football, unfortunately, across the country has kind of gone the way of the dodo. I mean, back when I played, the Empire Football League was the oldest semi-pro league in the country. It stretched from Canada all the way down to the Carolinas, and it was a thing for 75 years. And it was the level of football, the competition was unbelievable.
Yeah, I was going to ask how far you traveled for those leagues.
Well, we went as far north as Ottawa and Montreal, and as far like toward the Midwest as Wisconsin, and then down to Florida. So it was
oh, wow,
quite an expanse. Yeah.
I know. When we were in our 20s, when it was still going pretty strong, I know that they did go up into Canada, and it was mostly in the Northeast, from what I remembered.
Yeah,
I didn't know you guys went all the way down south like that.
Well, the league didn't stretch that far, but when the national playoffs came around, we were, not tooting our own horn or anything, but we were always ranked in the top 5. We went 3 seasons when I was playing where we were undefeated for 3 straight seasons. So,
Oh, wow.
After that was over, the vast majority of the Empire Football League was in the Northeast, but then you could go anywhere depending on who was ranked up there with you.
Did you get a chance to play with anybody that went on to play at a higher level?
I'm sure maybe I played against some, but I really don't remember off the top of my head. And nobody leaps out at me anyway. But there
Gotcha.
were a lot of guys that were playing like in my case, we played for the love of the game, and we just didn't want to give it up until our bodies told us we had to.
Well, and the thing about playing on a team like that is you have to cover a lot of your own expenses, don't you?
Absolutely, yep. As a matter of fact, we had the Empire Football League had a standing agreement with the NCAA that some guys, without jeopardizing their scholarships, could play with us as long as they didn't accept any money.
Oh, wow. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, so guys like rehabbing injuries and things like that between seasons sometimes would come and work out with us or play with us.
That's pretty cool. And it's just a shame too, because you had to support yourself by running a 40-hour-a-week job. You had to have a full-time job, and then you had to go to the practices. You had to work out, keep yourself in good physical shape, and travel for the games. And it had to be costly.
Yep.
Yeah, have your own equipment.
That's probably the reason it died.
To this day, this is the most dedicated group of men that I've ever been involved with, because as you said, we're all blue-collar guys. We were working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, then driving to Scranton 3 nights a week for practice, then getting on a bus sometimes for 10 hours to go play. We just loved it, and we loved each other. I mean, it was that simple.
Honest to God, seriously, for the love of the game. That's all it was.
That's the epitome of sports.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. That's like Sandlot baseball.
That's what I love about sports. Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. I was gonna hold off on. Yeah, you know what? Let's hold off on that for a little bit longer. Now you have another, like, your passion is writing in general. This is where everything started out. Yeah. So you're not just a sports writer. Your favorite part of being in the paper right now isn't just your sports articles. What's your favorite thing right now?
I have sometimes it's a weekly column, sometimes just a couple times a month. It's called Wayne County Wanderings. And it's something I started about 10, 12 years ago. I just went to the publisher at the time and said, hey, I got a great idea. Back in the day, local papers like ours were really hyper locally focused. And so you get all these really cool little stories about, just for example, the pierogi ladies up in Pleasant Mound who make 30,000 pierogies every year for, as part of a fundraiser. Go and take a picture and talk to those 85-year-old ladies and write a column about it. It was always supposed to be hyper locally focused and stories that would otherwise not make it in the newspaper. So I started that 10, 12 years ago. And as I said, depending on how busy I am, sometimes it's every week and sometimes it's only once or twice a month. But for example, I've got one coming out next week that I just went and interviewed this wonderful young couple who just celebrated the first anniversary of their opening a little bookstore on Main Street in Honesdale. Just terrific stuff.
Really?
Where they came from, why they're here, how it's going. Met their little cat whose name is Fable, who is like the mascot of the bookstore, and just simple little stories like that, which I think are sadly missing from newspapers these days.
Yeah, I think I know the bookstore. My wife and I were in there earlier this year, I believe. If it's the same one I'm thinking of.
Yep, Known Grove it's called, right on Main Street in Honesdale. Really nice young couple.
Yeah, and it's a nice little shop. It's very cool, and I like the feeling in that store. I like how Honesdale itself is kind of coming back to life, because I was just talking about it over the weekend. I just covered, this was my first experience with doing any kind of media coverage whatsoever for an event, but I covered the adult prom downtown at the Cooperage, and I discussed it a little bit in a video I did yesterday for it. Back when I was younger, I feel like there was a bigger sense of community in our area.
I would agree with you.
It's almost like people cared more about our locals, our small shops. They cared about each other more, and it feels like it faded away a little bit over time. And I feel that recently it's coming back again. It's starting up again, and I really want to be a part of that for myself personally and for us as a show. So I'm behind the Wayne County Wanderings 110% because that really puts a spotlight on all these small businesses and all these people that are doing their own thing and trying to be a part of the community and doing something good for everyone.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Corey, because one of the things we were talking about when I was in there interviewing them was there's a kind of renaissance going on right now in downtown Honesdale on Main Street, especially. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was on my lunch break from the newsroom, and I would walk up Lake Delegantes and get a slice of pizza and just walk around and just clear my head a little bit. Well, this one particular day, I decided to count the empty storefronts on Main Street. And as I said, this is 5, 6 years ago. There were 28 empty storefronts. Now it's down. I think it's down to like 8 or 9. So I think we're really moving back in the right direction. It's exciting to see.
Yeah, it is. It's not for nothing. It's always been a bit of a tourist area around here. It's always hopping in the summer. So the fact that we can't keep storefronts is a little wild.
You have to think though. Back when we were in high school, 9/11 and all that. Right after that, there was a huge influx coming in from cities. So it changed the dynamic, and now that group has finally settled in. Not a lot more outsiders have come in. So now it's reverting back to what it was with the new members that finally settled in.
Yeah, I think it's a really good mixture now. I as you said, it's starting to coalesce a little bit. I like the vibe that's going on right now.
Yeah, I've always loved the small town feel, and I never understood the people. I'll say the kids my age when I was younger who always talked down on our area. There's nothing to do here. It's so boring. Oh, I hate it here. Like, all I could think about was, what exactly do you want? Do you want to be able to party every weekend? Do you want to be at a club all the time? Like, there's so much that you can do in this small area if you just go outside. Honestly, if you just go outside, you go into town, you walk around a little bit, you're going to see all kinds of different things that you can do.
Oh, I agree with you.
You say that now, but you were one of those kids.
No, you
never said you hated this area, but you're like, I need to get out of here. There's nothing to do.
Well, listen,
especially when the plaza went to shit.
The only thing I wanted to do, the only reason I wanted to get out when I was younger was because I wanted to go to Florida so I could play baseball year round. That was it. That's the only reason I wanted to get out of here. But once I settled, like once college was over, my wife and I were settling down, I really didn't want to leave. I like it here, man. I love this area. I think it's beautiful.
I got to say, guys, people ask me all the time, why you decided to sink your roots here and stay here. It's very simple as far as I go. It's a great place to be a kid, and it's a great place to raise kids. That's what it boils down to for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to be able to raise my kids here. Now, I'm outside of town now. I grew up in town. Like I was within walking distance of everything. I would walk down to town. I would walk down to Justin's house. We would walk down to the Route 6 Plaza on Fridays and Saturdays. But now I'm outside of town, so my kids don't have the same experience I had, but we have property, and we're 10 minutes outside. We're in Beach Lake. We're not far.
You're in a suburb of Honesdale.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. And it's nice. It's wonderful here, man. I can't hate it. I can't.
I was definitely one of those kids, like, I need to get out of here. And even, like, young adult, I'm just like, man, just the area was wearing on me. So last year I buy a house in Archbold. Do you know how hard it was knowing I was leaving that area? And I'm only 20 minutes away.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
It's beautiful.
And it just feels weird to go back, and just think, I actually don't live here anymore, but this is what I consider home.
Cameron says, I want to come back. Do it, Cameron. It's worth it.
You're 18 now.
We see so many people. I know a lot of people who left and then came back. So many people.
I think it has a lot to do with what stage of your life you're at too.
Yeah.
Because there is definitely something to be said at a certain age, your early 20s, to get out and explore the world a little bit. But when it comes time to maybe sink your roots a little bit and start raising a family and have a stable, safe environment, I don't think you can beat Honesdale. I really don't.
Yep, for sure.
No, it's such a nice area. My favorite spot will forever be just standing on top of the cliff or
Oh my
sitting
God,
up there.
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of enjoyed standing at home plate up at the Homer Dome in Honesdale. Do you know what was it, like 2 years after our graduating class they put in that big wall?
That's right.
I think it's because other schools complained about us, Justin.
A little bit.
I'll never forget, we had an American Legion game against Montrose, and I had hit my second home run against them, and I was rounding third base, and one of the parents from the other team was yelling, like they came off the bench and were like yelling at me, "Oh, it's only because there's a short fence out there." And I looked over, and my smart ass self, my senior year, just said, "Well, it ended up in the track, so I don't think it's the fence."
Well, we played a Ramblers game there once toward the end of my semi-pro baseball days, and so that must have been early on after they built that field. And we had played a 9-inning Ramblers game there, and between the two teams, I think we hit 11 home runs. So, yeah, we'd outgrown that field a little bit.
Yeah.
They don't now. Do they use that field
They're
much
not
anymore?
going to. They have this coming year. They turfed what was the old field over by the football field. The stadium is amazing, but they should be able to play year round there now. And softball is going to be over there too.
Oh, really?
All turf too. There's no dirt at all. It's all turf.
Wow.
I hate that.
I was gonna say I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of glad I missed that.
So,
I
my
was a
first
shortstop,
experience.
so no bad hops on the turf.
My
I
first
guess that's good.
experience with that, my youngest brother went to Western Wayne. He played for, I don't know, one of the traveling teams here. I think they're part of the Sports Factory now, but it was a different name when they first started, and they were based out of Sullivan County, New York.
Right.
We went down. He had a tournament down in Flemington, and I decided to go down for the weekend and watch them. And I pulled up, and I'm like, "What is this field? The mound is turf.
Yeah.
The dirt is just brown turf."
Exactly.
I'm like,
so the mound too?
Yes.
How?
Everything. Batter's box. Everything.
I wonder
Your
what.
question was, how do you slide? I can't wait to see how people slide.
And it's a forced slide too. You have to slide.
Right.
They're burning through their pants. I'm like,
are.
absolutely not. I would much rather, and I feel this way when I watch pro football on TV. Like, it's not the same that you're not getting up and covered in grass stains and mud.
Yep.
That's what made that, like, watching old time football badass, is when it was raining, you were drenched and covered in mud.
I just can't. I can't imagine coming off a mound that has no dirt.
I know. I'm anxious to see how it plays out because I've never played on a field like that. So I'm going to be obviously interviewing a lot of kids, asking them what they think.
The closest experience I had was when we played at the Red Baron Stadium.
Right. And that's all natural grass now. They reverted.
Yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
When did they do that?
Oh, it's beautiful. It looks
when
like
they
a little
redid
baby
it
Yankee
a couple
Stadium.
years ago.
I mean, I've been there recently, but I guess it just looks so pristine. I just assumed it was still turf.
No, they got major league crews taking care of that. It looks perfect.
But even with turfed fields, they keep dirt around the bases and the mound and the batter's box, catcher's box.
Yep, not anymore.
Can you imagine playing shortstop, diving, and then having to get up and not having to go?
I know.
Yeah, no. Instead, you're getting rug burn though.
You used to wear that like a medal.
Yeah, if you weren't dirty, you weren't trying.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh my God. I
hate everything about it. It's beautiful. I saw it. It's beautiful. And I get why they did it. But oh no.
Oh, it shocked me the first time I drove by the field while I was working. I drove by and there were machines everywhere. The field was tore up and I was like, "Oh my God, what is happening?"
They spent
no idea what happened.
$4.4 million.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna assume they're gonna have like a fence that they can put up.
Yeah,
like a net fence.
2 temporary fences, one down towards the far end zone for softball coming out, and one where the baseball field always was going out in that direction.
I want to kind of roll backwards a little bit and comment on Bill Navoa's comment over there in chat. He said, "I moved but didn't want to. As soon as my son is older, I'm back." And let me tell you, Justin and Kevin, you especially. I don't know if you know Bill at all, but that one hits me because Bill is from New York. He's from Queens, and to see that he really loves it here. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of thought that Scranton was more your vibe, Bill. To hear that you want to be here in our area is a little bit of a shocker, but it makes me happy.
I mean, but you can also kind of see it with everything he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill's doing a lot to try to bring stuff to this area.
For the community that he does is actually back in Honesdale.
I've gotten to know Bill really well the last couple of years. He is a genuinely good man, and he's a good dad, which is even more important. He really puts in the time with his son. He's a good dude.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, man, his kid is a
son pushes him after practice. Dad, let's go practice.
Yeah, I love that his kid. I love that his kid is so into baseball.
Yeah,
and that's literally all he wants to do. I love it.
I'm excited this year.
Makes me happy.
This way.
I wish my kid loved baseball as much as I do. Yeah, I wish my kid liked baseball as much as I do. Oh my goodness. But it's all right. To each their own. He's his own person. So, all right. So now we had our sports fun. Unless, Justin, you really want to get into the Mets? You want to talk about the Mets? Because Kevin here is a Mets fan as well.
Let's go Mets.
I'm a Braves fan, though.
I'm hoping they make a push at Shohei.
I heard the Braves were going to try, and I kind of don't want them to.
Everybody's going to try. Why wouldn't you?
A really interesting thing I saw today, the 2024 Hall of Fame ballot came out, and David Wright's name is on it. Now, David Wright at the time was my absolute favorite player, but because of injuries and the shortage of his career, he's never going to make it.
No.
But that made me feel old when I saw David Wright's name first time on the ballot.
Andrew Jones too, right?
The fact that they put him on the ballot actually shocks me.
Because
I don't even think I loved him, and he was great when he played for the Mets, but injuries and not the best abilities availability, right? He didn't have a lot of that.
He was never the same after he got hit in the head with that pitch. He was never the same.
I never saw him as a Hall of Famer because how short everything was.
No, he's not going to get many votes. It just made me feel old and kind of sad. What could have been,
Oh yeah.
It still must be cool to see him on the ballot. Like there's a chance, however slim it may be, it's got to be cool to see him on the ballot at least.
I mean, absolutely. I remember him and Reyes coming in together, and I was just like, wow, this is going to be special, and then it just fell apart.
Well, Reyes is on the ballot too.
It's Jesus.
I have to go back. I did see the ballot, and I only glanced at it quickly. I have to go back and look at it. But hello, Bree. Welcome.
Before we gear shift, favorite stories. One that I did just this past year, I got to meet and interview Darryl Strawberry, and he was one of my absolute favorite players of all time. He and Dwight, obviously. And there's a perfect example of someone who for a long time was his own worst enemy, but completely changed his life around. And he's like a guy you can look up to now. He's just such a great story. And I got to interview him, write a column about him, got to know him a little bit. He met my mom, gave her a big hug, and she smiled for days after that.
He's a pastor incredible now, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He travels literally all over the world to talk to groups.
Me and Corey were joking around when we had Aaron on, right? About maybe trying to get somebody big, and that's what I said. I would love to have Darryl Strawberry.
He's such a good interview.
Justin, we got to start writing down how to contact some of these big names.
I know.
That's what we got to do. We got to start really working on that one of these days. But how did that even come about? Like, how did you get to meet him?
Jimmy Simpson, who has been a friend and played baseball with, he and I, baseball and softball for years. He's from Pawpack. Jimmy has a really great story too. He had some serious struggles with addiction, but again, really just turned his life around, and he's as big a Met fan as Justin and I combined. He's just like nuts. So through his new sobriety, he was going around meeting people, talking, and he and Darryl just crossed paths, and they sat down one day and just shared their stories. And they've become fast friends now. So through
Oh,
Jimmy,
wow.
Jimmy said, "Hey, Daryl's coming in today. You want to bring your mom over? He'd love to say hi to you." And it just happened.
That's incredible.
awesome.
That's an awesome chance meeting. I love that.
Incredibly nice man.
Oh, who else? Who else were we talking about, Justin? That would be really cool. Oh, Jim Brewer, right?
Jim
Oh, yeah.
Brewer. We
The
have a
big Mets
connection.
fan.
We know somebody who went to high school with them, and
It would be
we
neat.
threw bowling. We gotta reach out to him.
He'd be a good one, guys.
He would be hilarious.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love that.
Plus,
But
he's
now-
a Mets fan.
On the topic of memorable stories, we kind of talked about it a little bit before we went live on the show. I mentioned, I might ask you what some of your memorable stories are, and you have one in particular that you said you would always mention. And so, like you said, we'll do a little gear shift. I'll ask you that question for everyone in chat that's listening. What is one of your most memorable stories?
Without question, and it's not a sports story by any stretch of the imagination. It's I've been writing about this story for 25 years now. It concerns a local a camp counselor at a local summer camp. For those of you who are not from here, summer camps are huge, especially in northern Wayne County. There's more than 30 of them up north. Anyway, her name was Laura Ronning, and she was a camp counselor. She worked on the waterfront at Camp Cayuga, and she was from Florida. She was a senior at Florida State. And this was I can't remember off the top of my head because I wasn't really researching this to talk tonight, but it was either her second or third year at Camp Cayuga, and she was assistant waterfront director. And those guys, they work very hard. They get one day off a week during the summer, and her one day off, she just decided to walk to Tanner's Falls, and just have a couple hours to herself, read a book. And it was a sunny summer day, and just get some sun. And within, as best we can determine, within an hour or two of her leaving the camp, she was dead. She was raped and murdered in northern Wayne County, which is just still to this day. This happened in July of 1991, and it's still mind-boggling to me. I can answer any questions you guys want. I've done a lot of research on this. I've lived this. As a matter of fact, there's a little like shrine almost to her up there. Just a simple white cross that her stepfather made in his basement workshop after this all happened. And my family and I, my dad and I especially, we took care of that little shrine. Every year we go up there, we replenish it, we clean it up, we put new mulch in, we just take care of it as best we can. It's just I never want her to be forgotten is the bottom line. For whatever reason, guys, that's the story that has resonated with me and with my readers. No matter where I go, no matter what the context, somebody comes up to me and asks me, is there anything new about the Laura Ronning case?
So, oh wow,
That's
nice.
her. She was a beautiful young
Jared,
lady.
excellent. Now she wasn't a local, right? You said she was attending college down in Florida State.
Yeah, she lived in Florida.
And that's another thing that's common with the camps in this area. A lot of the camps that are here, they don't employ a whole lot of locals. They bring people in from all across the country and honestly all across the world.
More so across the
There are a
world
lot
now,
of European, a lot of Irish counselors.
Yeah, we got a lot of people from all over the place. So what is
Was
it?
that way? Was it the same way back then too?
Yes.
So that probably doesn't make that case any easier.
No, I couldn't imagine being that family and getting that phone call.
That's the most heartbreaking part of it. And long story short, guys, I'm always staunchly said there has never been any closure for this family. There was a local gentleman, I use the term loosely, who was arrested and charged years later with the crime. They took him to trial right here in Wayne County. The satellite trucks for CNN. I mean, everybody was here. And to be perfectly honest, it never should have been brought to trial because there just wasn't enough evidence to convict anyone, let alone the person they were accusing of it. There just wasn't any evidence. I was there. As I said, I've spent literally hundreds and hundreds of hours reading everything I get my hands on. I got at the beginning, we got through a Freedom of Information Act request. We got all the transcripts, everything you can imagine, motions, judges' chambers conversation, psychologist reports. I've read it all. And there just wasn't any evidence. It never should have been brought to trial. So not surprisingly, the family comes all the way up here. The trial only lasts a week, and the jury, and this is a capital case, mind you, the jury takes a grand total of about 90 minutes to acquit him on all charges. So there's never been any closure for that poor family.
That wasn't too long ago either.
I can't remember what year it was, but no, it was in the maybe 2008, 2009, somewhere in there.
So what was it about the story that stood out to you at first that was the reason you decided to dive into it? I know the shock of something like that happening in this area. It's not something we're used to. No. We're not used to that at all. But what was the first thing? I think you kind of hit on it a little bit.
Yeah.
In what you just said, but like, what was the main reason that it hit you and you were like, I got to look into this more?
Well, there are a couple of reasons, but what stands out the most is I'm sure you guys have all probably been to Tanner's Falls at one time or another. It is an absolutely idyllic, beautiful spot. There's a waterfall. There's this old iron bridge. It's called Tanner's Falls because 100 years ago there were tanning factories that straddled on either side of the water flow there, and it's just a beautiful, idyllic spot. Couple that with the fact that Laura Ronning was about as innocent a victim as you could possibly imagine to be a victim of a crime like this. I mean, she hardworking kid, very studious. Every camp counselor that I've ever talked to, every camper I've ever talked to, they just glowed. They loved her. She was universally beloved. And in a span of, as I said, an hour and a half at the most, raped and murdered and tossed into the woods like a piece of trash. It just, I still to this day can't wrap my head around that whole incident.
And you don't personally have any sort of attachment to her or her family or anything, am I right?
Nope, not at all. As I said, covered it from the very beginning. Got to speak to pretty much all of her friends and all of her family, and I don't know. It just connected with me for whatever reason. Maybe it was the time of my life that I was at. I was, as I said, I just gotten married, just getting ready to start a family. Everything's rosy and happy, and then this horrible, black, awful thing happens in our cozy little corner of the world. Mm-hmm. As I said, I'm still in disbelief about it. I go up there now, as I said, at least once a year, and I just, even though it's still as beautiful as it was, it's now it's kind of eerie. There's that thought is always there that right here is where this happened. Just an awful thing.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that even though you have no connection with her personally, to want to go back and take care of that little memorial constantly, I think that just shows what kind of person you are. And it shows, why people like myself and Justin and Matt in chat and Aaron in chat, the people who know you from this area, it shows why we respect you as much as we do.
Oh, thanks. I'd like to think that people have empathy too. I mean,
yeah,
we're all human beings, and she was a young woman with her whole life in front of her. God only knows what wonderful things she would have accomplished, had she lived out her life. And I'm telling you, everywhere I go, people ask me about this. I've talked to counselors as far away as the Netherlands, who still, they'll, in the middle of the night, they'll run across one of my stories online somewhere, and they'll email me, and my phone will bing at 4:00 in the morning, and here's this 10 paragraph long missive to somebody who worked with her for a couple summers and has never forgotten her. It's just, it's a terrible thing, but a lot of good has come out of it too. People come together when it comes to stories like this.
Yeah. And and again, what's that?
It's hard to imagine even still, like something like that could happen in that small town. Like
just the utter evil of it. We don't often get touched by stuff like that, and thank God we don't.
Yeah.
But boy, when it does happen, it really, like, your whole world stops when something. I mean, this was an unprecedented thing, and I mean, we've had murders in Honesdale before. Don't get me wrong, but this one, as I said, was someone just who complete innocent, whose life is taken in the most brutal way, who fought for her life. There's plenty of evidence that she tried to fight her attacker or attackers, tried to fight them off. But to this day, nobody's ever been able to say for sure who did it to her. And I hate, that's another thing, Corey. I hate that somebody got away with this.
Yeah.
Stand that thought.
And I noticed that right there you said attacker or attackers.
Right.
Is there anything that you dug into that you found that makes you think it might be more than one? Is there a reason that you mentioned plural there?
Two things. There was forensic evidence of multiple males under her skin of her under her fingernails. The second was the guy who was accused of this, Jeffrey Plishka, who has since died. The only evidence against Jeffrey ever was the stupid things that he said. He was one of these people who just had to be the center of attention, like to inject themselves into the investigation, as some people will say. At one point, he said in an interview down in Virginia when he was taken into custody and was awaiting extradition back to Pennsylvania, he said something to the effect, I wish I had the papers in front of me, but I'll paraphrase the quote. He said that he saw some guys with her, and geez, I hope they didn't kill that girl. And of course the officer's antenna go up when they hear something like that. Well, Jeffrey, if that was the case, why didn't you help? Why didn't you say something? He said, well, I didn't want to get killed either. Then he went on to say that one of them had a gun. So my theory has always been, now Jeffrey was not the most stable, reliable person, but I don't think he made that up out of whole cloth. And he definitely, there's no evidence that he ever did this. There just isn't. So you get the combination of the multiple DNA samples from under her fingernails, some of the things that Jeffrey said that he was afraid of his life. My personal opinion is that he saw her maybe being abducted, and they basically said, Jeffrey, get a move on, or you're gonna get it too. And he just drove on and didn't know how to. He had an IQ of 70, guys. He was not, he was borderline, handicapped almost, but able to function, able to drive his pickup truck and whatever. But he just, to this day, I think Jeffrey saw something that I wish if somebody could have, befriended him maybe a little bit and not interviewed him in an interrogation setting, maybe the whole story would have come out. But do I have any concrete evidence of any individual that I can name? No, I don't. But that's after all my research and all the years of writing and all the people I'm talking to, that's what makes the most sense to me.
And
Yeah,
maybe nowadays an interview would be done better, because back then, let's be real, it was like, all right, you're not all there, just get the hell out.
Right.
Like, we're gonna question you and just move on. Like, we're not gonna take anything you say seriously.
Right. And unfortunately, he's passed away, so that'll never happen.
And now you also said that you don't think they had enough evidence when they first went to trial. Do you wish that they kind of took a little bit more time to try to find more concrete evidence, something that could have stuck to someone?
I was hoping that with the prevalence now and the advent of DNA and how quickly the technology has advanced, that maybe someday we might, for example, be able to find out, maybe identify one of the unknown males. But back then they did try to do DNA testing, but they destroyed the entirety of the sample because you needed so much more material to get a DNA sample, a profile back then. So yeah, believe me, I've asked that question, and for all I know, all the evidence has already been thrown out because the DA and the state police at the time were firmly convinced that they had the right guy, but they just didn't have enough evidence. So Corey, the answer to your question is no, they never should have brought it to trial when they brought it to trial, because all that you have to do is look at the result. A jury goes out after a week-long trial on a capital murder charge, and they're out for 90 minutes. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Never should have been brought.
Oh my God. We actually have a question for you from someone in chat. Joseph wants to know, do you still keep in touch with her family?
Her mom passed away 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. And that's the last time I really wrote a full column about it. And that was after 30 years, I believe, or 32 years, I forget. But the short answer is no. And they got to a point, like, for instance, when they came out of the courthouse, they were met by, as you can well imagine, just a horde of reporters and TV cameras and stuff like that. And her mom said this, and I've never forgotten. She said, she was convinced that Plishka had done this and that she didn't get justice. And she said, we're never coming back here again. And then they've never set foot in Pennsylvania again. They went down to Florida and that was it. And they didn't like to talk about it anymore. And I understand that. You would want to maybe try to, even though you haven't gotten a lot of closure, you'd like to try to move on with your life. So the short answer is no. I haven't heard from them in years.
I mean, it's awful to not be able to get closure for the family, and it's a shame that the mother passed away without ever knowing what the truth was.
Right.
And
she said to me one of the other reporters, but I used the quote later. She said that she had resigned herself to the fact that she was probably never going to know in this life, and that she was looking forward to seeing Laura in the next life and maybe having her answers then. So it sounds to me at least like she had at least a healthy dose of faith going, which, I hope that helped.
That's huge. That's big. Do you want to tell people exactly where this memorial is for anybody who is a local that is listening, or anybody who happens to visit the area, so that they can stop by and possibly tend to it a little bit and try to keep it nice?
It's surprising. It's right up by Tanner's Falls. It's about 500 yards short of the actual falls itself, on the left-hand side of the road. And the spot where the little wooden cross is the exact spot where she went down over the bank, where she was pushed over the bank after she'd been killed. Anybody can get there. You just have to follow your GPS. Actually, it's not a hard drive. It's 7 miles out of town, but it's right on the little road that leads to Tanner's Falls.
Have you ever run into anybody at that memorial when you stopped by?
Yeah, you'd be surprised, because it is. I said to my son once when we were out there, when you're at Tanner's Falls, first of all, it's so quiet because the road is now closed because that bridge is impassable. PennDOT shut that bridge down. There used to be a lot of through traffic there. There's not anymore. So the only reason anybody goes on that road is to go up to the falls. But you'd be surprised how many people are up there. And when my dad and I were there last year cleaning up, we found in a little sealed pouch a mass card that was left there by a group of motorcycle guys.
Oh, wow.
You find little stuff like that all the time. A little teddy bear leaning up against that's a good picture. That's the rock to the left where you can see the people sitting there is actually where Laura was sunbathing when she was when they think she was taken. Right where those people are on the left-hand side.
And it's I was gonna say, it's a shame because it is such a beautiful area up there, and I can't imagine how many people go through there without knowing that story. I can tell you that it's not something that I've ever heard of before I talked to you about it, honestly. Before talking to you or seeing your stories about it.
That's surprising, because everywhere I go, I get asked about it. Doesn't matter what time of year, what kind of event I'm at. It's just, it has really stuck with people.
Yeah. That's a shame. It's a shame when that happens anywhere, but this, like I said at the beginning of the show, like, it used to be such a small town feel, community love in this area, and it's not something we're used to at all. Anytime you hear about something like that, it's wild to us.
Well, and the sad part too, guys, is the memory is starting to fade. There are a lot of people now, my kids' generation, for example, if I hadn't latched onto this and written about it so much, they never would have heard about it either. The memory is really starting to fade. I just don't want her to be forgotten.
Yeah, well, hopefully some people that are listening to this, if you haven't heard the story yet, now you know, and you can take a ride up to Tanner's Falls and pay some respect. Oh, that's beautiful.
Excellent. Yeah, and she was found about 30 feet down over the back of that spot right there. And the best part of the last column I wrote, at least from a writer's standpoint, from an informational standpoint for my readers, I actually interviewed the guy who found her body. He hadn't spoken about this since that day, and he gave me an exclusive interview, with his thoughts and his experiences and his memories of that day. And that was very moving and a little bit chilling, actually.
Yeah,
we
Chris, Bridenstine said that his dad was one of the people that helped find her and carry her out.
That must be a heartbreaking memory for his dad.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
No.
All right,
guys,
so
it's definitely
No.
it's really eerie too. When you go up there, it has like an eerie vibe to it. It's beautiful up there, but you always have that lingering fucking evil happened here.
As I said, that it's really changed. It didn't used to be like that. Now it is.
Yeah. Well, I see in chat here, Cameron says that the whole Eric Frayne shooter in Paupack is a big memory for me.
Oh,
It was before mass shooters were doing it almost regularly. Was during cross-country season and forced us to cancel practice and even had an emergency assembly about it. And that one, yeah, Eric Frayne is another story from this area that's going to stick with me forever because I remember it as it happened.
You also lived very close.
Yeah, that's when I lived in Tafton, and It was he was literally through the woods a couple miles, like trudging through the woods in there. I half expected to see him come out near my house.
And that's another example of just a purely evil individual. I mean, anybody who targets law enforcement, in my mind, there's a special place in hell for those kind of people.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. And I don't really know what the motivation was. And, you know, there was a lot of hearsay about why he did it.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard a couple different stories.
Me too.
To me, it doesn't matter.
No.
I don't care what his reasoning was. It was absolutely awful. And I'm glad Cameron mentioned it, because we went to my nephew's birthday party yesterday. We had to go out to Hemlock, and we were coming back Route 402 and drove by the police station, and that was going by there. That's my first thought. Like, I take a look to the left through the woods, and I'm like, my God, he was right here. This all happened right here.
And how cowardly. I mean, he's at the top of my list as far as cowards go. You got a problem with somebody, you know, no matter what it is, you take it up like a man, face to face. You don't go hiding in the woods and snipe away. I can't. It just boggles my mind to this day.
Chris in chat says, I was moving to an apartment on 402 the same day Eric Frayne did that. It was crazy. And then Chris in chat said that the anniversary of it was always a hard day for him, talking about his father and Laura.
I can totally understand that.
Yeah. Calvin, what's up? How are you? Stacy says, happened after we moved here, and I didn't know the area, and Jack was under 2. It was hard to go outside not knowing. Amen on being a coward.
Absolutely, Stacy.
Yeah, that put a lot of people into a frenzy. It was the same thing for me. I had a young child
locked down for a while.
40 days almost. He eluded capture for 40 days.
Didn't they cancel? They did cancel trick or treating, right? Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. No, because we were trick or treating when we found out.
Well,
yeah, we were we were worried about it.
I was like, they got him.
Yeah.
Well, I can say from my perspective, they canceled a lot of sporting events because, for example, Wallenpaupack area just didn't know how to protect people. You know, he could have been lurking in the woods and started shooting into the stands.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that was a scary time. It really was.
And for anybody who's listening right now or listening after the fact over on Spotify or on YouTube, this story, I highly urge you to look up both of these stories that we're discussing right here. The Eric Frayne story, since we didn't really tell you yet, Eric Frayne is someone who hid in the woods outside of local state police barracks, waited for a man to come outside after a shift, and shot him. And shot another man that followed. So the one was critically injured and was in the hospital. The other one he killed.
And from across the road, hiding behind a tree in the darkness. Again, coward.
In the woods.
Yep, in the woods with a rifle. Absolutely insane.
Capture for what, 40 days?
48 days.
I love the pictures though after they caught him, because they definitely beat that. They beat that man up.
Yeah, well, they said he didn't resist, but he suffered a cut to the bridge of his nose, left eye, bruises to his cheek. So they But so
yeah, beat him up. He fell. No, he fell while he was running.
A little bit of symbolicism here. You know what they did? So the slain officer, they used his handcuffs and they used his patrol car to take him back.
I do remember that.
It was awesome.
I do remember hearing that.
I love the symbolism there.
Yeah, Jared, quick on the research. I love it. You do a fantastic job, man. I love it.
But yeah, I remember
my pops in chat.
They beat that man up. He got it pretty good.
What's up, Dad? How are you?
Hey, Donnie.
Jack says, Jared, how dare you shave? We haven't heard anything from Joseph yet on that, Jared. I'm surprised.
Yeah, so no, I was trolling Joseph because he told me that I change my facial hair every time I come on stream. So I shaved just for you, Joseph.
Absolutely incredible. And he didn't pick up on it. I'm surprised.
I know. That's wild.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on in this area lately.
A small area, yeah.
Like no, it hasn't been bad lately. Like I said, things are getting better. We're getting back to that community feel around here, Kevin.
We really are, and I can, it's palpable. You can sense it when you're out and about in the community. Like I'm out there all the time, and for whatever reason, maybe because I grew up here, because my mom and dad, I'm very approachable. So people come up to me all the time, and the vibe is getting much better. It really is.
I always think that I'm approachable, but then I look at myself in the mirror and I think, my God, maybe I just look like I'm grumpy or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm hoping that we as a show can be more involved in our community and bringing more people on that have local businesses, or they have something going on that they want to share, or just anybody that wants to come on and chit chat, man, because I really want to build locally here. I want this to be a good thing for the area. I want it to be.
We can collaborate on something, guys.
I'm down with that. A little birdie might know that there's a sports show that's coming underneath this show name sometime soon. So, I mean, maybe if you want to work on something for that would be super cool.
Absolutely.
But yeah, anything, man. We're open to any kind of ideas, honestly.
Well, and I want to say just to sew up what we were talking about before, as far as favorite stories go, my approach, and I think you guys can testify to this, has always been to focus on the positive stuff. There's so much negative news, especially today, and so many different ways that it can bombard you. I'm always trying to balance out the negative stuff with, here's a good kid doing a good thing. Here's, somebody helping out in the community. Here's a kid that went off to college and threw a no-hitter. The first 2/3 of the newspaper can be a little dark sometimes just because of the time, that we're in. So when I get to the sports section into my column, I like to just try to make them smile a little bit and balance off all that dark stuff.
Yeah. And that's one thing I always enjoyed about, seeing your articles in the paper is you always tried to, you always tried to get, kids who played for our high schools around here that went on to college and did great things in college.
Yep.
You always tried to get stories of them in too. And I love that. And you continue to do it. And I love seeing it. Like that makes me happy because they are still a part of our community.
Yep. And my readers love that. They love 2 or 3 years down the road. Hey, whatever happened to that girl at the Honesdale softball pitcher? Whatever happened to that football player at Paupack? They love those stories and they really respond to them. And I do too. I love writing them. Yeah,
that's great. Brian says, bring community together by killing it. Bishop. Yay. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that, man.
I just saw Maddie Williams there too. I want to say thank you, Maddie.
Yes, Maddie Williams.
The Electric City Chargers.
Yeah.
We love Maddie.
We went to a tryout once, Justin, remember?
Yeah, that was no fun.
And then we realized we had to buy all our own equipment and we were like, oh God, we're too broke for that. We can't do that. Tea Leaf Readings in the Valley says, hey guys, been listening. All little towns have dark things that happen. It almost seems inevitable at times. I live in Bedford County and the stories and skeletons are terrible, but we do have a very close community.
Yeah, and that when those dark things happen, there's always a silver lining. It might be overshadowed by the horrible thing that happened, but the community really does come together. And
yes.
The Laura Ronning thing is a perfect example. I mean, everybody was out trying to help. Everyone was out combing the woods. They had to turn volunteers away because they just wanted to help. And that's our community in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah. Jack Ryan, it wasn't a tech college. It was just a satellite school for Penn State, that pitcher. But I played college ball for a couple of years and that was it. I never went pro. I tried out for the Phillies once, though.
Nice.
That was fun. I had a good third to first time, but my 40 time, not so much. I didn't get an opportunity to swing the bat because I was too slow.
Third to first throwing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, not running. Oh my God, what the heck, man?
Like
no, I was not a runner.
First to third, you had a good first. What?
Think Albert Pujols running the bases. That's me. Okay, that was me. I would have to hit the ball a mile to get a single. And how in the world can I forget that my wife's aunt had a body on her back porch?
Yeah, that's
how can I forget that?
God.
I did not know that story.
This was a few years ago. She wasn't home. My brother-in-law and his girlfriend at the time were living there. I don't think they were married yet. Were they? I don't remember. No. They might have been. I don't remember because I don't remember how long it goes. But anyway, they woke up it was like 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, something like that. And they woke up, walked out. They were living in the basement. There was a sliding glass door, and they woke up to a police officer shining a flashlight in the sliding glass door.
Whoa.
And they told them not to go out on the back porch because there was a body there. Like plain as day, they didn't hide it. They said, "Don't go out that way. There's a body on your porch." So they had to be questioned and all that. So what happened was it was we know the guy because we went to school with him. Justin, I his name was Tony Salino, and he had it out with his brother because his brother was with his ex. They were fighting over a woman, and he chased them down some back roads. And my wife's aunt at the bottom of her driveway has a road sign that, you know, it was her and her ex's name put together. They named their driveway. So they thought it was a road, and they turned up that road and they got trapped.
Oh.
So they started to fight, and then the one guy pulled the gun on the other guy and ended up killing his own brother.
That's mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely wild. When we got that phone call, we couldn't believe it.
And his kid.
Yeah.
His kid was in the car.
Is he out now? Is he out of prison now? I feel like he did not get that long. 10 years maybe? 5 years?
Still got to be in jail.
I would look into that because I feel like I remember. No, there was a different one that got out. It wasn't him. He's not out yet. But he didn't get a life sentence either because he claimed self-defense because his brother was kicking the shit out of him. But then there was the other one down on Broad Street where a guy waited for his girlfriend's father to get home. That one's out. He's out of prison.
That was an ambush in the garage. I remember that.
Again, cowards, right? Oh my goodness. Let's see. Anything else in there? Nope, that's about it. So one more thing I wanted to touch on before we head out for the night, Kevin. You were a writer at heart. It's not just sports writing. It's not just newspaper. You just enjoy the hobby of writing, right? Do you have anything you're working on that you want people to keep an eye out for in the future, maybe?
Well, I do. And it's for me, it's far more than a hobby. It's like I write the way a lot of people breathe. I just can't help myself. I'm doing it all the time, not just for the newspaper, but, you know, kind of for my own enjoyment, edification. I'm working on actually 2 larger projects. One is going to be a book of local history, but it's more anecdotal than, you know, not the headlines in the newspapers, but some interesting stories that I've found at the Historical Society or just, you know, through the grapevine. And it's going to be more historical fiction. It's going to be like the kernel of the story is going to be an actual event, a fact that happened, and then I'm just going to try to develop characters around that. And the other one is just a collection of short stories that I'm working on. So 2 more major projects, hopefully coming in the next year or so.
I love the short stories idea. I'm assuming that you already have a nice collection of short stories saved up.
I do. I have, and as I said, I'm constantly writing and reviewing and, you know, just trying to make them better. Every time I look at them, trying to make them a little better.
That's awesome. Guys, so pay attention to all that. We will try to keep you informed as we learn more, as we hear more. We will be sure to share everything that we see.
Links to put out there so you can go buy them.
Yeah. Are you trying to go through like Amazon for the publishing? Well, I hear that's a pretty common way to go about it now.
It is, yeah. There are a couple different opportunities that I'm exploring right now, but the vast majority of the material is there. It just needs a little polishing right now. So I'm hoping to, within a year or so, to have something more to say.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Oh, thanks.
I'm excited.
I see your stuff on Facebook all the time, and I see, again, not just the sports articles that you write. You always post all kinds of little stories and snippets. So I can see how much writing means to you in general. Joseph, I see you with another good question there. Have you got other guests lined up from Honesdale to come on? I'm glad you asked that. In fact,
we do.
Yes, we do. This upcoming Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, we will be having our friend Sarah Navoa on. Her and her husband, they bought a local fitness center. What is it? You know,
CrossFit.
CrossFit. Yeah. Why did I draw a blank on what it's called? Because I can't do it.
Honesdale at the garage.
Well, no, right. I know the name of the company. It's just the actions, the actual gym, CrossFit. because I can't do CrossFit. So yes,
Well,
we're
if
having
you knew the name, then you knew the exercise. It's
yeah.
in the name.
I know. I just drew a blank. I'm getting old. What can I say? I'm almost 40, Justin. So yes, next week, next Sunday night, we're going to have Sarah on to talk about her new company, and we're going to try to get a lot more out of her to see what her story is, how they went about purchasing this, because it caught me off guard. I didn't expect to see that happen. And her and her husband are great people. You know, we've had Chris on before, and he did a fantastic job. That's actually one of our archived episodes. That's one of our early things. I might release that again, re-release that this week at some point on Spotify, because that was a fantastic episode. But yeah, and we're hoping to get another one on. It's not set in stone yet for the date, but we do have another local on soon. And we are collaborating with a couple of other podcasters. We have one lined up for December 18th as of right now. It's a couple from, I can't say couple, they're a stepfather, stepdaughter duo from the Eye Opener Society. Justin, don't chuckle. Their podcast is called the Eye Opener Society, and they discuss a lot of the same things that we discuss, you know, and they're very much into the paranormal. And, you know, Justin and I, we really enjoy that kind of topic.
Like it's fun.
Yeah. So their show is very good too. So if you guys haven't checked out the Eye Opener Society, please check it out on Spotify. Listen to some of their stuff so that you can get a feel for what they're like before they come on. But yeah, anybody else who is local to the area, you have your own small business, you've got something you want to promote, or if you want to come on and you have something that you'd like to discuss, some kind of topic you think would be a great one for the show, please hit us up anywhere that you can find us, any of the social media platforms. That's perfectly fine. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely,
for
Kevin.
on.
Yeah,
You're
seriously, thank you.
We are not.
Thank you. I was honored to be on, and I really enjoyed talking with you guys.
Yeah,
It was
same.
a pleasure, man.
Yeah, and feel free to stick around for a minute or two after we end the stream. You know, everyone else leaves, but we're still here. So if you want to hang out for a minute, that's perfectly fine. Guys, thank you again for hanging out. Joseph, is CrossFit Fitness big in Honesdale? So there's one big gym, and that's theirs. And then we have a bunch of other little gyms. That's not a CrossFit one.
But
they have
out Sunday.
Yeah, you'll find out Sunday. They do have a big following. They got a lot of people that go there, and it's like you'll see when Sarah starts talking about it, they're like one big family. So definitely tune in for that one. You'll get to hear all about it. Thank you guys again for checking out the show. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us on the show. We really appreciate that. Jared?
I was going to say, Joseph said he's getting married the 17th.
Oh my God, Joseph, getting married.
You're gonna have to tune in because the 18th is my birthday, so you got to tune in for the show.
Oh man, that's amazing, Joseph. Congratulations on that. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope to see you again next week.
Later.
All right, y'all. It's the